You work so hard. You show up every day. You do what's expected of you. But deep down, you know the truth. One paycheck shouldn't decide how your life turns out. But what if your evenings meant progress? What if your weekends built freedom? What if your laptop became more than just a screen? This isn't about quitting your job. It's about giving yourself options. While others scroll, you start building. Quietly, consistently, and on your own terms. No pressure, no guessing. Just a clear system you can run after work, before work, or whenever life gives you a turn. That's what Goldmine on hustlesafrica.com is for.
Alright, hello there people of the internet, my name is Njegero and this is Dialogues with Njegero. I have always wanted to talk about cars and EVs. Look, people of the internet, whenever I am driving on the roads of Nairobi these days, I am very envious of some cars that I see. They're big cars, they look like houses, just a house that when I look at it I say, this one, if you give me, I will donate for you something, one of my kidneys, So it is interesting to talk about cars, and I've always wanted to talk about the EVs. Njenga Hakeenah is the expert in the EV industry, and he's also a journalist, he's a writer, he's many things, he wears so many hats. So today I decided to talk with him about EV cars. What is really going on? Njenga, how are you doing?
I'm good, Njegero. It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you, my man.
It's a very beautiful Nairobi afternoon. Yeah.
I saw your video where you were going to. First of all, there is a video. I've seen two videos of yours. There's one that I didn't like much.
Why?
The one for the not that I didn't like the video. I didn't like what you're trying to push down my throat.
I am not pushing.
there is a. You're trying to drive a Range Rover.
Oh yeah.
We are at the workshop where Tad Motors makes or build these vehicles.
Yeah, I was a bit disappointed with that. But there is the other one where the gentleman is actually turning videos into, turning normal fuel
Nice
cars.
vehicles.
Yes.
Into electric vehicles.
Yeah. That one was very interesting.
Yeah.
Tell me, what was that about the what is it called, the Range Rover that you're trying to drive for how was it even a kilometer? You drove it for, I think you drove it for
Yeah. I drove it for meters.
Meters.
But like in circles around the same place.
Yeah.
Reason being, it had not been licensed by
Mhm.
government, so it could not get on the road.
Yeah.
So
That is why it was driven for that short, distance and period.
Yeah.
And also, it's a prototype. At that time, it was a prototype. And so there were many things that they were also working on to improve, like the fluidity, the smoothness of changing gears and braking and things like that. So it could not get on the road at that time.
Yeah.
However, they have worked on that, and I think you can get that car for like 2 million. You have just spoken about seeing cars and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to give you my kidney.
Yeah.
So in China, because this car that you're referring to, I think you will show the guys the video.
Yeah, I will show them a snippet.
Let's feel how this car drives. What is happening in China is that when I was growing up, I loved Range Rovers.
Did you?
However,
All I know that you loved was Michael Jackson.
I still do, and I feel bad that guy had to go the way he did.
Yeah.
But we are wiser now,
I think the first time I really got to hear the one where he's talking about dead people, Tomb Raider, what is it called? Thriller. Yeah, Thriller. I had it from your phone.
Oh.
Yeah.
I can't even remember. Interestingly, now, I don't listen to much of that.
Yeah.
But the person that created that is still an inspiration for me, because Michael was very creative. But anyway, back to cars. So in China, the car that you saw looked very much like a Range Rover. And you will have Porsches, you will have any other big cars and big brand names that, are produced wherever. And the Chinese are making them, like those shapes. So in China, they are called Lao Tule or Lao Tules, depending on where you come from. I'm not Chinese.
Yeah.
So they call them Lao Tules. And so it's like, I could not get to that Range Rover, but I can afford this Range Rover. So they are built for a certain segment of the market, whereby I have a desire, but I cannot afford to make it become a reality.
Okay.
And so this Range Rover that you see is that kind of vehicle. The interesting aspect of it happening here in Kenya is that what TAD, because they are called TAD Motors, is doing is they are building these vehicles locally. So they are buying the materials locally. And only the electronic components are coming from China, and some aspect of, like the body. So like 30% is coming from Kenya, and they are going to grow that incrementally to 100% if it's possible. However, what you find is that our sector here in Kenya is still it's very young. We are still having to copy from China and to bring in a lot of things from China, the components, the bodies and all, and assemble them locally. Reason being, if you look at what was happening in the 80s, in the late 70s, 80s, 90s, we used to assemble vehicles locally. If you remember the buses, yes.
Really?
Yeah, there were the buses, there were the vans, the Toyota Land Cruisers were being assembled locally. However, because of how the business
when you
environment
say
is,
assembling locally,
yes,
what exactly do you mean? Like the way they assemble them in Europe?
In Europe,
because I know there are cars that, for example, many of the transportation vehicles that we use to different parts of the country, they're assembled locally, especially the big buses.
Yes,
they're assembled here in River Road, Panel Beat, and things like that. But then you see a bus, for example, the ones that are getting when there is a soccer match, the ones that get to the stadiums.
Yes, the Scanias,
the ones. So I don't know what kind of assembly you're referring to. Are you referring to the assembly of the Scania, or you're referring to the assembly of the buses that go to Kisii?
No, the Scania.
Yeah,
because we used to do that locally.
Okay.
Because what happened or used to happen is that, and it is what is now happening with electric vehicles, is we would get the broken down parts, or the parts would come separately.
Yeah.
They would not come in as, buses. We still used to import fully built units. But what used to happen back in the day, large scale, was that we would get the parts. They are called the semi-knocked down or completely knocked down. Completely knocked down is where you get the sheets, the panels, the body, the chassis, they come in separate.
Yes.
Semi-knocked down is either the chassis will come in.
That is the one that I was actually looking for.
Yeah.
The knockdown. Knock off or knockdown?
Knockdown. Knockoff is what people would call fake. So there's this glass, I want to make a knockoff of it.
Okay.
So basically I'll try and replicate this glass.
Yeah.
So I will mold a different one which looks like this, but it is not this.
Okay.
So that's a knockoff.
Okay.
Knockdown is this glass coming in parts. You see this microphone holder?
Yes.
So it will come disassembled in separate parts.
Okay.
So when it comes in separate parts, that is a complete knockdown kit. So all of them will come separately. And then if it comes, like set up to some point, and then you have to just add something, then that is semi-knockdown. Yes. Completely knocked down is fully parts. Okay. So you have to put them together. Semi-knocked parts is when it comes built to some extent, but it is not fully a vehicle. So
why would they not build the whole thing, but build it in parts?
The understanding in Kenya is that there is some aspect of, because that is some aspect of manufacturing that is happening locally, And so it shaves off a certain percentage of the taxes.
Okay.
So if you buy or bring in a fully built unit, so like you're bringing in a complete set of this mic,
Yeah.
it will be, taxed higher than if you brought in the parts and then you put them together. So it may sound like a zero-sum game.
Yes.
However, when you look at the automobile or the vehicle industry, there are many jobs that happen out there or go to the Chinese or whoever, the Europeans, that would be done locally. And the thing that the stakeholders are trying to do in Kenya is to ensure that not all the money we make goes to China because we brought in fully built units.
Okay.
There are some aspects of that EV value chain that Kenyans will benefit from. And so the Kenyans benefiting is when they bring in these semi-knocked downs or completely knocked down kits and they put them together. Basically, it's bolting and screwing together parts.
Yes, and somebody will be asking, why can't I just bring something that has been bolted together by the Chinese?
Taxes. Because if you bring in a complete built unit,
Okay.
a fully built unit, you will pay probably 50% more in taxes. While in Kenya, if it is assembled in Kenya, you will probably pay like maybe 30-40% less in terms of taxes.
Oh, is that so?
Yeah.
What is the rationale here?
Affordability.
No. I have this tablet, but it's coming in parts.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna charge so much for the tax.
Yeah.
But then when it's assembled, now suddenly it jumps. What is the rationale? What is the Kenyan government? What is Kenya government looking at? Are they looking at it and saying, okay, now that this has come in parts, our people are also going to get jobs from this?
That's a thing. So if you look and remember, like to the Kibaki left in 2013.
Okay.
Right? So when he came in, he allowed, and that's the time we got an influx of motorcycles. So he was like, we have reduced taxes, we want to empower young people so that they can become self-employed and things like that. So what happened is that the government at that time reduced taxes on importing these bikes.
Okay.
Yeah. So what happened is all the money that was being sent out to go bring these bikes did not benefit the local economy. But if these bikes were being assembled locally,
Okay.
some segment of the youth who didn't have jobs at that time would have been employed by that segment.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is the rationale of why they have to be assembled locally. But it also becomes the foundation for skills transfer and for fully manufacturing locally. So skills transfer is, can we be able to disassemble that battery that is powering your backup and then put it back together, and in the process learn how the cells have been made.
Okay.
So that if we are going to be able to make a knockoff
Right.
of that, then we can do it locally, and that is what local manufacturing is. So the rationale, like in detail, for the government to allow the local assembly and making the vehicles that are locally assembled more affordable than, bringing in fully built units is that they are creating jobs locally. And also there is this aspect of skills transfer and knowledge transfer so that we don't have to keep importing, like 10 years down the line. However, there are challenges because the industry, like you had, we used to assemble back in the day. But because of how the political environment was, the economic environment, the laws that have been passed have affected that sector, we are seeing like it's a miracle. It's been done.
Yeah, Njenga, it's very interesting. Before we go into the EV, vehicles, I want to ask, why is it that EV cars are extremely expensive? Is it because of the pricing of the tax, or what makes them very expensive? Because you see a car, and sometimes I look at those cars, and I'm seeing an 8 million car, and I'm saying, wait, if I had 8 million,
you would have a bus.
I would have actually a very, very, very
fancy
good, fancy fuel car.
Yeah.
So why is it that the government does not want people? Why is there? First of all, the reason why
They're expensive.
they're expensive. If it is taxes, why?
So in Kenya, things are very expensive. And in Africa, things are expensive. Reason being, we don't have the manufacturing ecosystem, and we have to import everything. So taxes and the lack of an environment or ecosystem that can help build means that things become expensive. So if I am going to import from China, all the layered taxes, like for vehicles actually, when it comes to EVs, if you're going to buy, and even the ICE vehicles, ICE is internal combustion engine vehicles, the petrol, gasoline.
That's what is called ICE.
ICE, yes. It's internal combustion engines.
Yeah.
So the pricing for when they are coming into Kenya is like 100% more. So you can get that car wherever you get it from for 2 million shillings. But when it gets to Kenya, you're going to pay probably 3 points or even 4 million shillings for a car that you bought originally for 2 million shillings. So in China, whatever we are seeing as expensive is not that expensive, because most of the vehicles that I've covered and looked at the prices, everything is added onto by the layers of taxes. Because in Kenya, it's not just VAT. It's VAT, and then there is customs, and then there is excise duty, and then so you have like 17 taxes.
17.
I'm just giving an example. But you have so many layered taxes on the same product. So by the time you're getting to buy that product, you're buying it at double the manufacturing cost. So that is why vehicles become expensive. That we cannot locally manufacture. We don't have the ecosystem. And then the layered taxes, which add up the cost of whatever you get as the end product, the car that you drive home. But if you went to China, what you have today, the vehicles that you're seeing on the roads, because we have jet tours, we have the BYDs, we have the Geelys and whichevers, all these are affordable for most of us Kenyans. But because we are not producing them locally, we cannot afford, because when you look at it, it's a small car in comparison to what you said. For that 8 million, or even for that 4 million, I can get a very nice ICE vehicle in comparison to a Kadudu that I'm going to get from China for that amount. But then another thing that makes them expensive is the technology behind these vehicles. So batteries require a lot of R&D, research and design and development. So there's a lot of intellectual property that goes into producing a BYD battery, or a CHTC, or a CHTL, CATL. All that has to be paid for. It's IP. It's copyright.
So if
intellectual property.
You mean if they're giving us their battery to put on a car that we're assembling, so we pay for the IP and then we pay for the battery.
The cost is in the cost of the battery. Okay. So the IP is like when you have produced this program, there is copyright.
Yes.
So if somebody needed to publish or broadcast this, they would have to get your consent.
Yeah.
So your consent can either come free, or you will tell them, it costs me to produce this. And so this is how much you will pay for you to be able to broadcast my content. It's the same thing. So you're paying for an idea, basically. So it is expensive producing a battery. But once you have gotten that prototype, you just improve on that. But still, that does not take away the intellectual property of the person who designed it. And so, ideally, and how it happens is, you see Michael Jackson, you mentioned him in the beginning. His music is still making money today because it is his IP. And his estate, his family, whoever, is still benefiting from whatever he signed and said, yes, I have given you this much, right? But the right of owning this music belong with me and my family for all the generations to come. So that is the IP. You cannot take it away from, and it is costly. So that is another reason why vehicles that we are getting in are expensive. But if you look at it like that way, even the Europeans, even the Chinese are still paying for that IP. But we can go back to the simple analogy of we are importing and then we are layering taxes. Because in China, the car you will get here for 5 million, you can get for 2.
In China, the car that you get for 2 million Kenya shillings, you'll get
it here for 5 million because of the layered taxation.
It is more than double the price.
More than double the price. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go to the basics then and talk about, you talked about a few things, yeah? We have ICE, which you say internal
combustion engines.
And then we have the EV, meaning what?
Internal combustion engine is, I am not a mechanical engineer, but internal combustion engine is the engine whereby you have to start your car and then it has to spark something to burn the fuel to run your car. EV is electric vehicle. So everything is like is operated by a battery.
Okay.
Yeah. So whenever you flip on that switch, that key, the sparking is not there.
The sparking is not there.
Yes. But there is a connection that happens whereby the battery now knows we are on, it's time to move. And then you have the controls, the brakes, the accelerators, and things like that. But it's very different from what you get when you're using an ICE. For instance, when you start your fuel car,
your ICE
vehicle, it will take a certain time for it to peak. And this is why we have acceleration speeds.
Yes.
So if you start and step, fully on that gas pedal, the car won't like move instantly like flying. It will take time to burn and then to translate that into energy and then move. But for EVs, it is almost instantaneous.
Okay.
So you start and then it's like, let's go. And the beauty about the EV technology is that most of the moving parts that we have with the ICE have been removed.
Okay.
So you don't need the carburetors, you don't need the fuel gauges, the fuel whatever's, or you you don't need the fuel filters and things like. So a lot of those things, components have been removed because all you need is that battery and the systems to operate it. So if you look at operation and maintenance, it is expensive for me to run my petrol vehicle than it is for somebody who is running an EV. If you go to the streets today, I know you've taken an electric Uber or something.
Yes.
These guys don't care if fuel is up or wherever it is because they will still move. All they need is to charge their vehicles and they are good to go. But when you look at the maintenance of an ICE vehicle, you have to fuel it.
Okay.
Petrol. You have to do the oil, the engine oil. You have to do the coolants. You have to do all those. Well, there are coolants for the electric vehicles, but most of what you would use or spend on your ICE vehicle, you won't spend on an EV. And then the maintenance is... the maintenance times are few and far between because unlike the one whereby the carburetor will die or something, the oil filter is blocked or the starters are, for the EV those things are removed, and the only thing that wears out in an EV is the tires, because also the weight is like constant. It's standard. So if you buy the car at 1 ton as its weight, it's always at 1 ton. There is never a time it will be less by 50 liters. Because when your car is full tank, it's probably 50 liters, right? So there are times it goes to like 5 and shows you the light. So in that instance, it's probably 40 plus kgs lighter than if it was full. So for the EV, it is constant. So that weight is always constant. And so what happens is that people keep changing the tires. The tires change more, but other maintenance is
when the
limited.
EV cars started coming into the country, people had a very big fear. Then I remember there is a time I was taking an Uber and this guy was having, it was half electric, half
hybrid.
ICE, hybrid, right?
Yes.
And he was telling me that the problem with this car is that when this battery breaks down,
you are in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Why was he saying that? Has anything changed since then? Because I think this is about 7-8 years ago that we were talking.
Yeah. Can I cough?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, so hybrid vehicles in Kenya were coming in as second-hand vehicles.
Oh, really?
Very few people were buying, and even today, very few people buy new cars because our markets, not only in Kenya but across the continent in Africa, are controlled or dominated by second-hand vehicles. And so the vehicle that you're referring to, that this driver was worried about, if the battery dies, it's done. It's because it had been used for like 7 years before it came to Kenya.
Okay.
So its prime of using that battery was not in Kenya. It was not with this driver. If you remember back to probably the same time, we used to have these blue cars. They were called Nopia Ride.
Yes,
Nopia Ride.
Yes, Nopia.
They were Nissan Leafs at that time, not the ones we have
I
now.
remember
But
they used to park at the hub in Kari.
yes. And so today, I don't think you spot many of them.
Okay.
Because what happened is that when the batteries died, they died. Those vehicles went off the road. But maybe the guys who are running that can come and tell you. But Nopia Ride, I don't think it's still in existence. However, like I mentioned, the vehicles that were coming to Kenya at that time, especially aimed at the Uber, ride-hailing, and, affordable transport, were still 7 years old or 8 years old. So if a car has run for 7-8 years old, what does that tell you? Most of its life is gone, especially if it's battery. It's the same thing with your phone. When you buy your phone, the first few months it lasts with charge like for 2 days.
Yeah.
Right? And then it deteriorates as it continues. And then you have to charge it every day. And then you have to charge it every too often. And then it has to be on charge throughout. It is the same thing with these vehicles that are coming in when they have been used for those many years.
Yeah, okay. Now, I wanted to ask you a lot of people have told me that the government does not seem to like the idea of EV cars.
Of course.
And what is the reason why they don't like the idea of EV cars?
When you fuel at the petrol station, a liter of fuel gets to Kenya at how much?
I'm not sure.
At about 80 shillings, right? So 80, 90, we can even say 100, yeah? But every other shilling on top of that is tax.
Yeah.
On that fuel. And where does this tax go? To your government. What does the government do with your taxes?
We don't know.
Exactly. So, the government would not, and I don't actually, because I was with one of the guys in that sector, in that Ministry of Transport, a few weeks ago, and he was saying that we are working on making sure that we don't have some of these vehicles, these second hands, in a number of years. So what happens is that there are many levies or taxes that the government collects from you fueling your car, which is like, again, 70% on top of the landed cost of that liter of fuel.
70%?
Yeah, because if it got here at 90 shillings or 100, and we are buying it at 170 or 180, it is 80 shillings on top of the 100.
Exactly.
So that is 80% more than what it should be, ideally.
So that is almost 100%.
Exactly. So these are the taxes that run this government. I won't say the country because I don't know where they are running as a country, but those are the taxes that enable the government, however we perceive government, to run as it is. But when it comes to reducing or, the consumption of fuel, of course there is going to be some kind of resistance, because when you cut off 80% of your revenues from fuel because you brought in electric vehicles, you lose that. So imagine if the government collects 1 billion shillings per hour from fuel, then you remove 80% of that. They are going to lose about 800,000.
800 million.
800 million.
Yeah.
So this is what they don't want to do. And that is why I think they are facing it, pole pole. They just want to do it pole pole. Not like, because if you go to Ethiopia was like, we are no longer allowing you guys to bring in ICE vehicles. Kila mtu a shift electric. And you know what has happened? Ethiopia is now winning itself off imported fuel, which is very expensive. And what they are doing is all that money is being, whatever was going out to pay for oil is now being reinvested in their economy. Look at the dam that they just launched, which is generating, I don't know how much in terms of electricity. I think like 60, 70%.
The one that Egypt was having a problem.
GERD, yes, GERD. So that dam is generating electricity that they are also able to sell outside of Ethiopia. They're selling to Kenya, I think, and I think it goes to some other countries. So if a country can be able to retain that money within its economy, then, and this is why in China, they are able to do so much, invest in research and design and development, because most of their money stays within their
country,
their economy. And so it is the same thing. Unfortunately, because I would say it is short-sighted for the government to kind of delay the shift or making it hard for people like you and I to buy these vehicles. Reason being, look at what is happening with Iran and the Americans and the Israelis. What that has done is that it has made oil become expensive. It has not hit us yet, but I understand there was a crisis meeting that was held, I think, last week. So what happens is that when you are no longer in control of the very things that affect your economy, you can't stand for long.
Yeah.
So imagine if whoever was selling us oil decides you'll be paying 500 shillings per liter. You have no control over that. And it is a possibility.
You'll have to pay, if you abandon your car, then you'll have to pay very high fares and very high taxi rates.
And then the unfortunate thing for our economy, the Kenyan economy, it is run on diesel, which we do not produce. We have to import. So look at the buses that run across this country, that's diesel. If you go to the Kisiagi in Ushago kwenye hakuna stima, what are they using? They're using diesel. Because we also don't have a lot of solar energy where we do not have grid electricity. And so what this means is if the situation with the Americans and the Iranians continue, then life will become more expensive for you and I, because petrol will become more expensive, diesel will become more expensive. Your packet of unga that we have been fighting for that you cannot increase beyond 100, it could go to 300 and 500 shillings. And what are you going to do about it? Until you become independent as a country, that you are able to live within your means, then it still remains at somebody else's masses.
Because my thinking is that, well, people can go ahead and pay 180 like you want them to pay, but it also means that they are going to deny some other aspects of the economy this cash, right?
Yeah.
So if you allowed people to pay less for fuel and have electric cars, then they can efficiently do their business and therefore paying more taxes.
That's
instead of insisting that you want their billion, instead of probably getting 2 billion.
That's the thing.
When people do other things with that money.
That's the thing. Because when you can afford, for instance, when you can afford to eat at a hotel every day, our economy is very touristy. Like the hospitality industry is like a big percentage of our economy. If you could afford to eat at a fancy restaurant like 3 or 4 times a week, what does that mean for the economy? That people are able to spend. And so they keep the economy running. But when I have to plan for 3 years to go to that restaurant and eat 1 meal, what does that do to the economy? It denies them the money I could have spent. So if I cannot afford, then it means that even the government, whoever we perceive government to be, will not get this money. Because also I am looking at what is going to happen tomorrow. Instead of spending this today, I will keep it because I am not sure tomorrow will be here and kinder to me and enable me to kind of still, sustain my lifestyle. And this is why if you look at the past 3 years, Kenyans have started spending less and less. You've heard of businesses closing down. You've heard of we are no longer going to Ushago for Christmas. We are no longer spending that much during Christmas. Malls are almost empty, in these high seasons, in quotes. It's because people are trying to not spend because they are not assured of, if I spend today, I'll be able to recoup or to make up for this when I need it. So like emergency funds.
All right, people of the internet, I hope that you're enjoying this episode very much. And I just had a break to tell you about my new book. Everybody says that there is no job, and that is true. Also, that was me 10 years ago. The problem is that everybody is trying to get a job in their town, in their city, in their marketplace. They ask friends for jobs, mothers call uncles, uncles call brothers, but there are no jobs. Let me tell you what no one is telling you. Jobs migrated online. What I actually mean is there are many, many jobs around the world and there is no one to do them except you. I work for Americans myself. I work for Europeans. I work for the Chinese. I work for the Australians. I work for the Canadians. And so, because I have done so much for myself, I said to myself, you know what? I should compile what I've been doing for the last 15 years. So in 2024, I wrote a digital book called Goldmine 18 Hustles for Africans. And then in 2025, AI came. People say AI is taking away our jobs. And for me, I'm going to say false. There are actually AI jobs. Jobs are not being taken by AI, but there are new jobs online that are there because of AI. Now, mimi ni nani? I created more jobs. And for now, in my new book, we have 25 online and offline jobs that you can leverage on if you do not have a job. So in this powerful volume 2, I share 25 new actionable online hustles specifically researched and tailored for Africans. My new book provides clear step-by-step guidance drawing from my extensive experience and research, including the mistakes I've made and lessons I've learned over the 15 years that I have worked online. So what can you do online? You can become an executive assistant for busy folks in Europe, America, Canada, and get paid for tasks like watching videos and taking online surveys. Okay? You can build a lot of things. Build a business as a virtual assistant, start an e-commerce shop without capital, be an affiliate marketer, or you can also become actually an English tutor and tens of AI jobs. If you have a job, that is fine. But I also know that you can buy this book for that brother, for that sister, for that mother, for that cousin, for that husband who is watching Netflix all day at home. Buy it for your friend who is always asking for cash. You know that friend. Now, all the information is on the description below. You can also inbox me, you can WhatsApp me, or go to my website, which is odworjegero.co.ke.
Yeah.
Okay. There are several questions that a Kenyan who wants to cross over from ICE to EV. What are some of the questions that if you were to to be asked, what will those be? What are the fundamental questions I'm asking myself before I buy an EV car?
So from not personal experience, but from people I have spoken with, not just from Kenya, but from across the continent, and probably beyond the continent as well, is EVs are really nice. They are really good. They are cost effective. They are easy to maintain and things like that. However, it makes economic sense if you're driving all the time. So, and this, we go back to why government should also think critically about making the economy grow. if you look at mass mobility in Nairobi, that is public transport, the buses are, I think, probably like maybe 200,000 or something. Most of those, like 90% of those are ICE. All this money goes to someone else, not we Kenyans, because when you have bought the fuel, there's still that money that you're paying to the Emiratis or whoever in the G2G arrangement and wherever, and it goes outside of our economy. However, we have electricity that we generate affordably. We have Kengen, we have the dams that we have around, we have whoever else is generating electricity here, not from imported fuel, but locally. There are those dams, there are solar panels, projects, solar plants. So if we could retain that money that we pay for electricity instead of paying for fuel, oil, diesel, petrol, and money goes to somebody else, imagine if we retained the 80 shillings within our economy. It would be very vibrant, yeah? Because that money is in circulation. But back to your question, which questions would somebody ask? You know, like, why should I shift to EV? If you are in long distance traveling, like every so often, get an EV. Because that way you're going to make savings. If you fill your car at 8,000 or 10,000, the likelihood is that you will do 60%. Let's say you will do 40% less on consumption charging your car. And that's a reality.
60% less.
60%, 40 to 60% less charging your car. Similar size, you know, weight and things like that. So you will have saved all that. So assuming you're filling your car for 10,000, but you have been able to save 4,000 or 6,000, then that money goes somewhere else. You can invest that in something else. Of course, we know that our economy is very informal. So if I am running a cash shop somewhere, I am able to increase my stock. I am able to, you know, kind of increase the branches and things like that. So that money can go to some other use or spend. Even eating chicken once in a while, if you really struggle doing that. Then if you do like agriculture, moving things and, you know, the transport industry, because logistics is one of the biggest consumers of diesel. Not only in Kenya, across Africa and across the world. Because for you to get these things, they had to be shipped here. So they had either to be on a ship or on a plane, and then for them to get to you, somebody had to drive something, either a truck or a car or a bike. That was fuel that was consumed. So imagine if that fuel was what we produce locally. Currently, I think it's only Nigeria that has its own oil that they can refine, and so however long
Aliko Dangote is finally allowed to do the oil because he's been having a lot of problems with that.
Of course, you know who does that. You know who brings those problems. It's the people who benefit from the inefficiencies.
Because I understand that at some point the Nigerian government refused to buy from him.
Of course, because you know what? When you cut out tenderpreneurs, you know, government has to have a logistics, not a logistics, but a purchases department. So whoever is purchasing has to sign, and there has to be a cut for this person to allow whoever to bring in. And I'm not saying this is what has happened in Nigeria, but I don't understand their dynamics that much. But most likely, somebody who was benefiting from the inefficiencies of whatever oil issues they had in Nigeria, diesel, gasoline, whatever, was the loudest in opposing what Dangote was doing. If we come back home here, it is the same thing. Tell me why, this is about EVs, but tell me why it would take more than 10 years to fix drainage in Nairobi. It is because somebody is benefiting from the inefficiencies. in that system. Reason being, I will tender for a certain part of that to be done, that system, right? But this person that I'm giving the tender to, I know them. And so I will get my cut. So we can never really allow somebody like Jagero, who has an idea on how we can fix traffic in Kenya, to come in and bring in these issues. Look at what happened with the matatu industry when we had Swivel. I don't know if you remember Swivel.
I remember Swivel, one of the best things that ever happened to this country.
Exactly. What happened?
They did not allow them to operate within Nairobi.
Operate. Is it that they cannot operate? Or they could not operate?
They were denied some sort of license.
Exactly. But they were public service vehicles. And they were offering public service, an alternative to the chaos that we are used to. But because somebody benefits from the chaos in the public transport industry, they could not allow somebody to bring sanity into this system. And it's the same thing that is happening across all the sectors in this country and in this world. It is somebody benefiting from the inefficiencies that will always bring blockades to whatever would smooth out things. So back to the electric vehicles and why you would need to shift. So if it's for going to church and then back home, no need. Because again, an EV's value is in you traveling as much as. Because just like with the phone, whether you use it or you don't, the battery degrades. So kama unanunua gari, you be parking at home, then it's not worth it. If it's a short distance travel all the time, you don't need an EV. Yeah? So it would make more sense if you're traveling more.
When you say I don't need an EV, you are, in other words, saying that I shouldn't struggle with the cost. So for example, if I'm able to buy a good car here for 1.5 million, and then on the other hand, I have to struggle to get 6 million to buy. So you are telling me that, look, don't bother yourself with looking for another 4 million on top to buy an EV car, because in any case, it will take you a long time to use the fuel for 4 million, right?
Yeah.
So that is the idea.
It's the economics of it. It's the economics of it. So, and that, like when will you use the 4 million on fuel?
Yeah.
You know? So, and then when you have bought the EV, and I'm not trying to kill this sector by saying don't buy. What I am saying is what makes economic sense for me to have an EV is if I am always on the road.
Yeah.
But if I am buying it to park it at home, to just drop my kids at school and then come back, and dropping these kids, it's maybe like 3 minutes away from my house, and coming back, that doesn't make economic sense. But if I have to be traveling from here to Machakos every day, commuting for work, from here to Kitengela, from here to Nyeri, that makes economic sense if it's a daily thing. But if it is once in 3 months, it doesn't. Yeah.
Effectively just because of the price at what you buy the EV vehicle.
Exactly. And I think this is now when you compound, makes these vehicles seem expensive.
Yeah.
But if you're buying it for returns, so like whoever has bought the electric bus today, if they have run that bus for the past 2, 3, 4 years, most likely they have paid off the cost of that bus. Yeah?
Because I can imagine trying to drive, let's say, a car in Nairobi, let's say every day you're doing 50 kilometers or 100 kilometers every day.
Yeah.
Sometimes even more, actually. These taxis do lots of kilometers.
They do a lot. So for the taxi business, it makes a lot of sense to have an EV. But for me and you, I need to go see Jagero. And I don't see you every day. So if I am coming to see you and you're like 3 kilometers away from me, it makes more sense if I Ubered than if I drove. You know?
Yeah.
So, or if buying a car just to be going to see Jagero once every 3 months, who is 3 kilometers away from me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the EV's economics makes sense by driving more.
But if you are at a place where you can get it for 2 million, then it makes sense.
Absolutely. Because like in China now, they are affordable. You can get an EV in China for less than $1 million.
What is that? Is what kind of
These
car
two
is
small
that?
cars,
The Demio.
Demio size, yes. You can get them. The Lautules we just spoke about, you can get them for less than $1 million, for less than $2 million. Yeah.
So then, where do I charge an EV car if I have one in let's say in Nairobi? Where do I charge them? Do I charge them in the house?
You can charge in the house.
I hear it takes forever to charge in the house.
No, it depends on what kind of charger and what kind of vehicle you have. So if it's these small, tiny cars,
The Demio.
yes, those ones you can charge using your kawaida charger
For how long?
for 7 hours.
Seven.
But at night when you're sleeping, that is when you charge it, right? So you charge them when
You're sleeping.
you're sleeping.
So, for example,
And
go ahead.
interestingly,
Okay.
at night electricity is cheaper than during the day
In Kenya,
in Kenya.
is that so?
Yes. I don't know how they algorithmiced that, but it is.
Okay.
There is an EV tariff in Kenya, and it is at night.
Really?
Yeah,
There is an EV tariff.
there is an EV tariff in Kenya. So if you want to wash your clothes, if you want to iron your clothes, if you want to bake at night in Kenya.
Oh, is that so?
Yeah.
All right, great.
You have now you're gonna do.
Where do you? The charger is a bit proprietary. Like
Yes,
you can't
just like
you can't
you-
just hook it on a wall.
It's not a USB-C, but because also it is much more than charging your phone. It is a bit more advanced in terms of the technology within it, but you can charge some using your kawaida socket,
Your wall socket.
your wall socket, yes. And I have driven cars there are videos, those cars are being charged using the wall socket. It will take longer to charge the 7 hours, but
It will take longer than 7 hours.
it will take the 7 hours to charge, or 8 hours, depending on like how drained it is. And then because if it's 60%, then it's probably
Because I hear Kina Tesla can charge for just about 30 minutes or 40 minutes.
those are the superchargers that they are releasing now. And this is why I told you that if you buy a car, it is an electric vehicle, it is expensive because of the IP.
Okay.
And the IP is now these things that you're seeing with the chargers, with the batteries, with the software that runs that car. Because the battery management system has to be run using somebody's idea that built this system. So they have to keep making money. These are the guys who are making money when they are sleeping. Yeah? Because their technology was used somewhere. It's like if you download an app on your phone, somebody is making money from you using that app.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's the same thing with IP. And so these chargers, for the fast chargers, you have to go to a place or install one at home.
Install what?
Install
The charger.
the charger. But now for just your car, at home, it wouldn't make sense. Because if you can go to, like even here, I have seen you guys have a lot of parking space. That parking space can be converted to have some electric fast chargers. And if you had like 3 or 5 within here, within a year, you guys will have to add more because people will be like, oh, those guys have electric chargers.
But we will. So the people, the owner of the building or the premise would be charging.
Of course. Electricity is not free.
And how much is it to charge a car?
I don't know, but it is per unit. You see the way you pay, like if you are at home, if you're charging at home, you will just pay your electricity bill, right? So probably it will be an extra by 2 or 3 or 5, depending on how much you charge. But here, now they will come and say, so you charged 5 units. Kenya Power sells us these 5 units at 1,000.
Okay, Kenya shillings.
So we will charge you 1,200. Or we will charge you 2,000. So it's for them to decide how much they will charge. Yeah.
And somebody will be there like they are at the petrol station.
Not necessarily. Because what you need is a code. You can do a code.
Okay.
And then you're like, charge your car. So for the fast chargers, the Teslas and the BYDs, because they are chargers that now are charging in under 10 minutes fully.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So if you
Under
have
10 minutes?
under 10 minutes, you come, plug in your car, even if it was empty, in 10 minutes it's fully done. So for that, then whoever, the owner of the premise, decides I'll be charging this much for the fast chargers or per unit, and that becomes
A
also
car
a
like a
business.
Demio is takes how much liters of petrol?
I think it's 40, 45,
40.
50.
So
yeah.
about 6,000 Kenya shillings.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but when you come and charge
An EV,
you
you might use 2,000.
yeah, 2,000, 2,500. An example. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's cheaper.
I really
it's cheap.
I really like the idea of having an EV because
It is. It
the
makes sense.
The problem is now going far-flung areas. Like if you are
Driving to Kisumu,
yeah
or to Mombasa.
you must have 400. A car that goes for 400.
yes. But now, along the way, people have come up with the chargers. So if you get to Nakuru, there are chargers. If you get to Naivasha, there are chargers. So along that whole way.
Are you? This is a hypothesis or they?
No. They're there. They're there.
Yeah, but how long? 7 hours.
No. See, you'll just go top up for the next, because if you fill your battery for probably say 20%, it will take you 100 kilometers or something,
To Nakuru.
to Nakuru or wherever. No, I'm saying if you need to top up along the way, then there are places you can top up. So you can top up in Naivasha, you can top up in Nakuru, you can top up somewhere else in a town.
A lot of
that
topping
road.
up because your battery is not capable enough.
No.
If your battery is not capable enough.
No.
Because there are batteries that go for 300 miles. I've seen batteries. That is-
Even more.
That is actually going to Kisumu.
Yes, there are more. There are batteries that are doing a longer range than Kisumu.
Like 600 miles.
Yes.
Those are not in Kenya.
They are not. But for those who can afford, especially the looters, they are there.
And this is the thing. If you're a looter, then you don't care about fuel, right?
That's the thing. And this is why you keep wondering, watu ni nani wananunua hizi magari mpya makubwa. It's because you don't really care about the fuel. But the charging stations are there. Yeah. Okay. Along the way.
So if I want to buy what are some of the cars, top 5 cars in Kenya are EV cars? Can we talk about them that you can actually buy now, and what are the prices?
So
there are others that you told me I should not buy because they are
like if you buy the small one.
No, you told me that there are car companies that are going under.
Yes.
Did they go under since we last spoke?
They have not.
Because I saw them here actually in Kenya.
They are.
They are like a fleet of them. I saw at some point they were doing like 25 of them.
And
okay,
the beauty about this thing is, in their home country, China, the Chinese don't want them. But in Kenya, we do not have them. So what happens? The Chinese, because they cannot sell in China, they will produce for us. And so we give them a market stream to bring these vehicles. So if the ones that were going under become creative and innovative and get out of China affordably, then they will have a lifeline.
But you see, now they are coming here and they want to sell that small cockroach car for.
That's the thing. And that's the problem with our standardization systems. That's the problem we have with our government, licensing
because
and things like
somebody's
that.
looking at that car and I'm like, I need to buy that for 4 million? No.
It doesn't make sense. For me, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't.
How about if they did a knockdown? How much? How would
It becomes cheaper.
But they would not want to do a knockdown.
They have started, especially for the small ones that you're talking about. They have started. They are doing the knockdown kits in Mombasa, and I think in Athi River. They are building them. Well, they are assembling them locally. So what will happen is whatever they were selling for 4 million will become cheaper. But do you know why it will not go to 2 million?
Yeah.
It's because just like somebody bought a tile company in Kenya and said, we have to protect the local industry. And so what happens is whatever is imported becomes more expensive, but the local company is still selling at the same prices as the imported tiles.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. So, because they don't want to reduce their margins. Forgetting, we go back to the mass production. The more I sell, the more affordable a product is, the more it sells. So, and I think it is being short-sighted that you think I will produce 5 cars, sell them for 10 million each.
Yeah.
Instead of producing 50 cars
And
sell them for 3 million each.
Yeah.
You know, because it's about replication.
So
Already the research has been done.
So they're assembling the cars here.
Yes.
Because it's cheaper.
It makes them cheaper.
But they don't want to sell them cheaper.
That's the thing. But I didn't say that those who are out there don't want to sell them cheaper because of whatever. But the reality in our system, what I have seen, is that whoever has whatever we are looking for in this country, they will sell it for top dollar until someone comes and steals that from them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is gonna, but it's different with the bikes. They're not. The bikes are more expensive. The e-bikes are more expensive than the fuel ones.
In some instances, yes, but in most instances, no.
So the problem is just with the cars.
Sorry?
The problem is just with the car in terms of EV, but the motorcycles.
Because
but also I had something very scandalous within the EV, the motorcycle EV sector, that you don't own the battery.
That's the thing.
How would you not own the battery, bro?
And this is why I have said in some instances they are expensive and in some not. Because there are some companies that are sending you the bike and the battery.
Oh, is that so?
Yes. And then there are those who are offering battery as a service.
What does that mean?
Battery
Njenga?
as a service is whereby come, take your bike, you own the bike, but you have to keep coming to charge your battery over here.
So I don't own a bike.
So
I don't own a
that is my
without a battery. I don't
that
have
is
a
my
bike.
revenue stream. The battery as a service, that is my revenue stream.
And do they give me the bike for free?
No, you pay for it.
But you can't go and get another battery somewhere.
No.
You can't import a battery.
You can, but depending on the contract you signed, you
Yeah.
could be in breach.
You'll be in breach and probably the bike is not yours.
And the bike is yours. On paper, the bike is yours. But where they keep you leashed to themselves is you have to keep going to swap that battery
do you know how much this
or to
swapping
change.
costs? Is this cost 100? What is the cost of swapping this battery?
It depends on, because if it comes, if I go swap at 60%,
Okay.
I won't pay the same as somebody who is coming to swap at 10%.
What does that mean?
So if the battery is depleted 40% and I want to swap it, I will pay for the 40%, not for the 60%.
That's pretty interesting, yeah?
Yeah?
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder how much is this how much is it to swap this battery? I wonder.
So swapping the battery, I think it's like, I don't have the exact figures, but it is not that expensive. Probably 100, 200. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are the cars that we can buy as we finish?
Oh,
this
yeah,
podcast?
yeah. You had asked about the cars that people can buy. And this is not an endorsement.
Yeah.
The cars that, of course, the best seller of EVs in the world is BYD.
Did it overtake the other one?
Tesla, yes.
It overtook Tesla.
They have sold the most EVs as of last year. Yeah.
That's interesting because I remember Elon Musk taking a swipe at them on Twitter then, saying, "What is BYD?"
Who's laughing now? Yeah. And you know BYD started as a battery company, eh?
Why did they? Oh, yeah.
A phone battery company.
And I think they figured out how to make a super battery.
Yes.
Is that true? Am I thinking right?
Yeah. And actually, the batteries we are talking about today, they will get better. Because now, interestingly, in China, and I'm not marketing China here, is most of their innovations are not driven by capitalism. Capitalism is whereby whoever I know that if I improve this battery by 10%, it will give you 60% more range. You know? But because I want to keep you leashed to me, I will keep sending you the same battery. But in China, they keep improving on the batteries, and they keep releasing them to the mass market. Because also there is stiff competition in China. So BYD is one of the best cars that you can buy.
Would you say BYD is the number one
EV seller in the world?
EV seller in the world? But let's not talk about seller. Can we talk about the quality?
Yes.
The best, if you in its own class, if you compare a Tesla Model X and the same class in BYD is better. In what?
Battery, maintenance, it's not expensive as a Tesla. It's affordable.
I've seen some here that are going for 10 million.
I know, but what is the equivalent of a Tesla?
It's much more.
Of course.
For starters, they don't sell
because
Teslas
they sell
here.
the name.
For
They sell the
starters,
brand,
starters, they don't sell the Tesla here.
Yes. So I would say you can get whatever you want. And in China, there is a price for everything and for everyone. So if you go to China now and tell them, I want a Tesla or I want a BYD, but this is how much I have, they will give you that.
They'll remove some things.
Yeah. It's the same with Gucci and Gucci and whoever, you know? There's a price and a brand for everyone. Yeah? So, and somebody actually, there was this conversation on how they stripped a BYD and realized, oh, this is why they are selling it cheaper.
What happened?
Than Tesla. So they understood, so they will cut down on some things, not risking your life, but they will remove the embellishments that don't matter. Because what you find with BYD is that there were specs, like if I buy a certain brand from Japan or from Europe, I'll have to customize it to get it, driving assistance, to get, some kind of sensors that I want. But BYD gives you the car with those.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
There is not so
no
much
extra
add-on.
costs.
Like
for,
add-on.
They are add-ons, but they are not charged extra.
So why are they add-ons?
They are add-ons.
You can't call it an add-on if it's not charged extra, Njenga.
That's what I'm trying to bring it home.
Yeah.
So the competitor will send you the same things as add-ons.
Yes.
But BYD will send you as, this is the car.
This is the car.
This is what it is giving you.
Oh, I
so
see
what we would call add-ons are kawaida offerings for this brand. And this is why I told you in China, they don't do capitalistic kind of approach in doing their business.
I don't think it is really the word capitalistic. I think they're just. I think everybody takes care of the other, so to speak.
That's the thing.
The government understands that people don't buy. If you sell things very expensively, then people won't buy. Then the economy is slow and so on and so forth.
But also we have to realize that the Chinese know poverty like we do. It's only in the last 20 years that they have started coming up. Otherwise, up until the 80s, up until the 90s, they were as poor. Most of them were as poor as we are. But they have invested in their economy, in their education system, in their people.
Our government has never been interested.
Like I told you, it's because of interest, selfish interests. So I will be an entrepreneur and I will create inefficiencies here and there.
Because I'm just wondering, people like some of big politicians have the money and the cash to start assembling plants for EVs.
You see, have you ever attended a politician's rally?
Yeah, I have.
Thousands of people are available to attend those rallies.
Yeah.
Imagine what would happen if those 1,000 people were occupied by something they were doing that is giving them value. Say a job, farming, a mechanic somewhere. They are busy somewhere. Would those politicians get those people?
No.
So poverty is somebody's business.
Poverty is somebody's business.
Yes.
What other cars? You've just
So
talked about
we've talked
BYD.
about BYD. There is Geely.
Geely, how do you pronounce it? How do you spell it?
Geely.
Okay.
So Geely is the second biggest in China. And I said these are not endorsements, but it is from my experience speaking with people who have driven them and who are selling them. And so they understand what the customers are looking for. Oh, by the way, some of these vehicles can get customized for you. So if a BYD comes bare minimum or a Geely comes bare minimum and then you feel the seats are not cushy enough, they can customize them for you. See, whatever brand, BYD, Geely, they can customize them for you. Okay? So that is where probably the pricing would change. Yeah? But generally, they offer you, whatever they would offer your president is what they will offer you. But then you're like, oh no, I can't drive the same way as that guy, so I need these specs. Yeah? So they can do that. So Geely is the second largest selling.
And this is in Kenya too?
In China. Is the second largest vehicle maker in China.
Okay.
Yeah? And being second largest tells you they're doing something right.
They're doing something right.
Yeah? Then many others that I've not...
Xiaomi?
Xiaomi is...
Tell me about them.
Is a bit premium.
It's premium.
Yes.
Oh, really? But
it's a premium.
There is a pretty new one in the market.
Yes. It's not so new. Well, in our market, yes. But it has been there for a long time.
Xiaomi
Ethiopians
cars?
are, yes.
Really?
Ethiopians have driven Xiaomis, man. By the way, dear Kenyans, we need to travel outside of Kenya because, and I'm not saying this from a point of pride or, and if we can't travel, the internet is awash with information. I was in Indonesia in January, and I saw cars I have never seen here. Right. And by the way, as a Kenyan, as you are a millionaire, almost a billionaire in Indonesia. With 100,000, I think you have so many millions. Indonesian rupees, I think they use rupees. But I saw cars that I have never seen here. And those cars will be here probably 8 years later. Yeah? So I would say, if we can't travel, the internet has loads and loads of information and exposure. Let me tell you something. Sorry, guys. Is this allowed on this podcast?
What is that? We can't tell if you have not said it.
It's not about cars.
Yes. What? Yeah.
But it's about information.
Yeah.
Information is power.
DWJ is a place where information is spewed every day.
So I think this show has to be split into two. Some is where we are talking about other things, and then you will just have the cars, segment. But the Friday when we were flooded in Nairobi, I was there.
You were in the floods?
I was in the city, yes. I have videos. I have evidence that I was stuck in the city center since 8 p.m. I was getting home past midnight. Before I got in, because I was using a matatu, before I got into that matatu, the hoops and loops I had to do, running and stepping on that water and not finding matatus. And then there are like thousands of Kenyans with you, and then you're like, oh, misery loves company. It happened. But one person that challenged me in this time, and I spent a lot of time, more than an hour with her, because it was raining heavily, is an askari in one of the premises in the city center. She has documentaries on her phone. And she was telling me things, and I was like, man, you may look at her as an askari, as a security guard, and just dismiss her, but she knows so much. How does she know this? From just consuming content on the internet. To inform herself, to know. She is more informed than somebody who has a master's degree in this country, but who is never consuming the kind of content she's doing. Because for this one, like myself, I have to travel to see. But she knows so much and is even making comparisons. Like, this and this country is doing this, but why are we not doing this in Kenya? If we look at the expressway that we have,
Yes.
for many people, it's a miracle. You know, it's like, oh God, a road in the air. In Indonesia, they are everywhere. And it's a poor country, as per what we know, right? And I was surprised when I landed there and I didn't see anything. Like on the road, a pothole or some muddied spot or some puddles, and it is raining. And I walked around Jakarta for more than 30 minutes. They have a path for blind people. With their white cane, they can walk around that city without guidance because it has been done. The only place I have seen it done is at railways here with the underpass that was built the other day. I saw something like that, and I saw it on that Friday night when we were stuck here because of the rains. And so we need to know we can always have better as Kenyans. Sorry, it was about cars.
Yeah.
The third one is, now that you've talked about Xiaomi is a luxury car.
Yeah, I didn't think so until
It's
today.
basically your phone on wheels.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that they've got their new entrant is a very good car. Like they are calling it something. They're calling it what? There's a Escalade or something. And I hear people saying that it's better than whatever is in the market right now.
Yeah, and they keep improving. So by the time you're getting the 3-year-old Xiaomi here, they have already produced like 3-4 more iterations of whatever you got. So, but that's not the third. So depending on what you're doing, like if you're in logistics, there is Dongfang. So Dongfang would be good for somebody in logistics.
Yeah,
in
the
Kenya.
lorries.
They have the lorries, they have vans. They also have passenger cars. In Kenya, they are, or actually across the markets,
using
they are
them in
called
Kenya?
namis.
Who's
There are
using
people who are driving them. People in logistics, delivery companies. I have not seen a company doing that, but the countries that I've spoken with, like in Nigeria, they are doing deliveries. But in Kenya, they are here as well. And they are also assembling or planning to, if they have not already started. But I think they were starting to assemble sometime late last year or early this year. So they are assembling locally. So there is a local aspect to it. Then there are woolings.
Yeah.
Woolings also,
The very, very small one that you tried long time
there
ago.
are small ones, and then they also have different kind of vehicles for logistics and also for passenger. And then, there's like, the one that has a roof that, what is it, a convertible? Yeah, so they have those. So depending. But for somebody who is into business, the woolings would be good for ride hailing. Yeah, for your run around town kind of thing. Yeah, because they're also not very fast and the range is not too big. But they also have vehicles that are bigger range. Those are 4. Then, well, I don't want to mention those because back home they have issues.
But they're here in Kenya.
But they are here in Kenya.
What
What I would say is for the 5th one, do your research. Do your research. If there is no local assembly, if there is no...
There's one that I keep seeing here.
Yes.
That is doing what is the name?
I won't tell you because now that will be a story. What will happen is...
No, come on, Njenga. This is terrible. This is really, really terrible.
Because
This, I mean, people need to know about this.
they need to know.
And if there is a problem in China, it is public information. I read it online.
That's why I have said, please do your research before you buy a car.
Why is it that you do not want to say the name of this?
Because they are in business.
And are you not in the business? You are, as a journalist, you're in the business of telling people what is going on.
However,
So you are sending them to to go look for themselves when you really know the information.
no, I can't give it. But you can read the content that I produce. Most of that content has
How do they find you, by the way?
hints.
How do they find
I'm
you?
on China
YouTube?
Global South projects.
Yeah, but
So-
what is the channel is called Global South.
Yes, China Global South project. I have an EV show, the Africa EV show.
Yeah.
So there we have conversations about all these vehicles.
Yeah.
But I told you, and the reason it is the 5th is because it is very prominent here.
But the
And you
question,
can see it.
the question, Njenga, is now, what exactly are these people going to do when these things? Suppose the company actually is dissolved, goes bankrupt.
It's
in China.
already bankrupt in China.
But all these cars, where are they coming from if they're bankrupt?
You know, they had stock, they had already produced.
So
But
they're dumping them here.
there is a likelihood of that. However, the reason I have said the best is to do your research is to see if they have been declared bankrupt and instead of producing vehicles, they have become a spare parts producer
Okay, so then they will be producing spare parts for the
for
cars that are
these
already in the
that
market.
are already in the market. And this is why I didn't want to like say this is the brand that you need to avoid, but it is big. But now the brand that you can consider in terms of like the 5th, if you need to buy, there are so many vehicles that you can buy. There is Neo. Neo is also premium, most of it, but you can get a kawaida regular car.
I've seen very reja of Neos here in the country.
Yeah. Also for like ride hailing, for logistics. These vehicles are not for comfort. They are for moving me from point A to point B. But you can get Xiaomi for comfort. It can even self-drive. You just tell it, take
You
me
can't
home.
self-drive that thing on the road to Kawangware, bro.
That's the thing.
You cannot.
But for
You
that
cannot
level
drive,
of comfort.
You cannot self-drive that thing in Lavington. You cannot self-drive that in Kitusuru. You cannot self-drive it in Karen.
That's the thing.
So the idea that you're going to have an add-on of self-drive, it's actually just gonna it's gonna crash break you all the time.
And our roads
There
are
is a
not
time
well
I
marked
drove a car and I really suffered.
because it's sensing everything.
Yes,
Yeah.
in fact, it did an emergency brake next to junction when it saw that thing that the Chinese are building.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, this car has just gone bonkers.
Yes.
And the funny thing is that I didn't know what was going on. So I called the owner because it screeched to a stop.
You thought it had quamad or it had been
so
blocked.
I called the owner and was like, what's going on with the car? So the car might have seen something that looks like you're going to crash into it.
Yeah. So they sense. So, and our roads are not well marked
They're not.
for the self-driving aspect of vehicles.
Even for the changing of lanes.
Changing lanes,
The car
lane
will refuse
assist.
to change lane.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, it's very interesting that this particular car that I was driving, if you don't toggle the going right,
Yeah.
it won't change the lane.
No. Because it's been fed. You know, it's following that. If you have been on the American autonomous vehicles space, if you know about them, they have the Waymo. So the Waymos have been fighting on the roads.
Waymo to Waymo.
Yes. Have you ever seen the Beatles? Have you ever seen Beatles fighting?
Yes.
So they have had those on the roads. So
Why?
this Waymo has come and this one has come, and so none can give way.
Oh, I see.
So they are like, like pushing each other like this. So weird. But yeah. However, there are so many other Chinese brands. Some we don't even have names, local names for. But what I would advise somebody who is interested in buying an electric vehicle, wherever it's coming from, not necessarily just from China, is check for the warranty. What are you buying it for? That is really important. For moving you from your home to church and then coming back home, parking it for a week until the following Sunday, it doesn't make economic sense. But if you're looking for vehicles that are going to do business for you, bring you money,
But the people that are
Matatu.
selling the EVs, Njenga, do not give this kind of explanation that you're giving.
That's what I'm telling you.
For them, they're just saying,
They're in
it's going to be
business.
amazing. It's going to be amazing.
They're in business. But the reality is, the more you drive, the more economic sense an EV makes. Yeah.
Okay, Njenga, it's been a pleasure.
But there are so many brands. There are over 100 vehicle manufacturers in China.
100?
Over 100. Actually, I think it's like 127, 130 something.
How many do we have in Kenya?
Of the Chinese?
No. Electric vehicles. None.
Like building locally?
Yeah.
No. What they're doing is they're assembling using Chinese components.
But the guy that I saw you driving his Range Rover, his workshop is not very tidy. It's not looking good.
It was a prototype. At that time, it's like
These are the people that we look down upon, and then in the next 5 years.
That's the thing. And this guy, by the way,
Yeah.
he has built electric vehicles in Ethiopia.
Can I ask you
Over
something?
the past
Before I
almost 10
forget,
years. Yes.
How difficult would it be to change my ICE car into an electric car?
It depends on the battery technology you want. You can get a Tesla, you can get a BYD, you can get...
Are you saying the answer is yes?
You can change it, yes. You can convert it.
Very expensive affair.
No. Maybe like an M2 million, you'll have a good car. Yeah. Because
You're not
also,
serious.
you see,
You're not serious, bro.
most of the engine, which is like the digestive system of the car, has to go. And that has to be replaced
Entirely.
And then
Would you advise somebody to do that?
if you love your car that much, again, if you travel that much. But then you know there are people who have passion projects. Like, I am going to build this car. It has to be built.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Njenga, thank you very much. People of the internet, it was really, really nice coming together with us in this show and listening to the ideas of the car. Cars is something that I'm very, very much interested in, Njenga. I've always wanted to do, what is it called? Should start a show with you where we talk about cars, drive them out, and talk about them, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. You can join me on some of my trips.
I should. When is the last time? When is the next time you're going out again?
The next time I'm going out is next week.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So
we can go. Yeah.
Yes.
You can tag along.
We can tag along and see what it does.
Yeah.
All right, people of the internet, thank you very much. It was nice having you. Please consider subscribing. Hit on that notification bell so that when we have a beautiful podcast like this one we are doing with Njenga, you'll be the first person to be notified. We are on social media, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere else, wherever you get your social media dose. So until another episode, bye for now.
Kwaheri.
HustlesAfrica.com, a guide to high-paying online jobs. At HustlesAfrica.com, you will discover the jobs people are doing from home, the platforms where opportunities are found, the skills that open doors, and the practical steps to begin earning. Go to HustlesAfrica.com today.